to Makers Demo Day. I'm Nikki. I work in the marketing department at Makers, and I just wanted to give you a warm welcome to our demo day and wish all the cohorts good luck on all their presentations. I know they've been working really hard over the last couple of weeks, so it's really exciting to see what they've been doing. We have cohorts, all different specialisms presenting today, including our demo day later this evening. It just so happens that everyone finishes on the same day, but it's really nice that we get to bring everyone together in the same event, continuous event, and all our partners can see what other specialisms do and what kind of projects they do, and we just thought that's a really nice way to help to construct the event. With that being said, if you do need to hop off where the person you're watching or the group that you're watching is finished, but you want to jump back on, that's absolutely fine. You won't disrupt the event, so that's no problem if you need to hop on and hop off. At the end of every group's presentation, the coaches will open for questions. So we'll just be doing like 1 or 2 questions just for time-wise. But if you either want to chat, pop your question in the chat box or just turn your mic on or your camera on as well, that's absolutely fine. And you can ask questions that way. So for the next minute or so, I'll just talk a bit about Makers, what we're all about for anyone new here, and just what we've been up to recently. So as you may know, our slogan is building the future, and Makers is just that, because our mission is to transform lives, and organisations. We like to bridge tech industry needs with undiscovered tech talent, and that's why we partner with such incredible organisations, some of which are here today because they're like-minded change makers like us, and we have the same goal to find and train exceptional individuals that go on to do amazing things. We're really career changer focused, so many of the people that you're about to watch today will be career changers, and they've come from all walks of life, and we really value where they've come from and embrace like the diverse talents that they've brought from their previous jobs and experiences. Many of the talents will be so valuable in the new organisations that they're going into, communication, teamwork, asking those questions that people who don't have those kind of backgrounds might not ask. So yeah, we find that very valuable in career changers. We really empower makers with a growth mindset. So we do this by helping students really make them see that, to embrace opportunities, to embrace challenges as opportunities, and help them see the importance of persistence in the face of setbacks, and feedback as a way to improve and not be threatened by. And yeah, we nurture the mindset that failures are just opportunities for growth. Diversity is the core of Makers and what we do. We really care about building diverse tech teams and supporting and growing people from a wide range of backgrounds to get into the tech industry. We work with incredible organisations, some here. So we work with CodeBar, TechSheCan, Next Tech Girls, Mozambique Makers, Code and Black Fleet Females, just to name a few. And we have our yearly campaign, Women in Software, which really helps to elevate that message about bringing more diversity into tech. And lastly, I think I mentioned this at the last demo day, but we've got a new website, and we're now almost in phase 2. So yeah, we thought it was time to build a new site that really aligned with our new branding and our new messaging, and it basically just gives more accessible information to our clients, our makers, potential students, and helps them access the right information. So that's it from me. I'm going to pass over to Claire now to introduce the first cohort for the software developers. But congratulations, and wish you the best of luck in your presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikki. So the first cohort that you're going to see is the software development cohort, which means that they chose the software development specialism. So as you know, the Makers Bootcamp is a 16 weeks coding bootcamp. It's a very intensive learning experience, and our developers over the course of their time with us will go from just knowing some coding basics to being able to build full stack applications from scratch, which is what our teams have been doing over the past 10 days or so. And it's really incredibly rewarding to see people going from doing the foundations just a few months ago to now being able to build the kinds of applications that they would like to see in real life and use in real life. And as their tech coach, it's been a real privilege and a real pleasure to also support them in that journey. So for today, the project that you're going to see in terms of the ideas, the research, the execution, everything has been completely done from scratch by each team. So they have picked up their own ideas. They have also worked on some new stacks in some cases, so things that we didn't teach them at Makers. They have decided to use some new to them frameworks in order to bring their ideas to reality in the best way possible. And in order to do this, they have needed to utilize all the skills that they've learned during the bootcamp. So anything ranging from agile team working to planning, researching, implementing their code. So it's an extremely exciting event to take part in. And I hope that you enjoyed their presentations. And yeah, so the way in which it's going to work, we're going to have one team, and then you'll get some time to ask some questions as well after their presentation. And then we'll kind of move on to the next team in that order. So the first team that we're going to be welcoming today is Devs with Problems. So if you want to start, I'll leave the floor to you guys.
Hi everyone, welcome to our project demo. We were assigned the topic Dev Tools, and since everyone in our project group is a DWP apprentice, we called our team DWP, Developers with Problems. We ran through a few project ideas before finally deciding on what can essentially be called a tech space. We wanted our project to be a central hub of resources for developers of all skill sets, a space for developers to network, share ideas, advertise job opportunities, industry news, training tools, and to discuss projects. And the problem that we plan to solve with this project is that starting a career in code or taking a step to learn something new can be very daunting. We wanted to create a place where someone would have access to everything they need to learn effectively, in hope that it would provide a more enjoyable and comfortable learning environment. Once we decided what we wanted the project to be, we began by deciding on what we wanted to achieve and which features we'd like to have within this project. We then used these initial feature ideas to plan what features we'd like as part of our minimum viable product. To organize our team, we used a ticketing system to allocate tasks, so we didn't end up with multiple people working on the same task. So our next step was to essentially create tickets for our MVP. At this point, I'll pass you across to Simon to go over the tools we used.
We took some initial steps to help protect our project. Using GitHub to store and share our work, we placed a block on pushing any code directly to our main branch, forcing us to work on separate branches and merge our changes into the main version. We set up a rule that required 2 other people to review any code we'd pushed, allowing us to discuss and catch any errors before the code went live. We had agreed to write tests alongside new features, and we set up our workflow to make sure that all tests would pass before any new code could be merged. Finally, we added code linting and formatting to make sure the code met industry standards and helped us avoid any single and double quote battles. All of this meant that no matter what our personal coding styles were, our project was consistent and functional. For our main tech stack, we opted to use SvelteKit. This was something that was completely new to most of us and was an intentional decision to challenge ourselves to build something that we had no experience with. This turned out to be both a blessing and a curse, as we spent the first few days learning a new piece of kit from scratch. But in turn, this strengthened our abilities to find resources online, reading official docs, and improved our learning processes exponentially. There have been several major updates to SvelteKit that have changed the way the software works under the hood. So many of the articles and tutorials we found were out of date. Even ChatGPT was of absolutely no use to us. While frustrating, this was a great exercise in problem solving, both on our own and through discussion as a team. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll pass you over to Nick to talk us through the demo.
Thanks, Simon. So here we are on our landing page. So most of the website is available without being signed up, as we wanted it to be an accessible tool for anyone. So we'll just scroll down there. We'll just go to the top and we'll head to the sign up section. So here we can sign up. Just for speed of video, we're going to skip straight to a logged in user now. So over to a logged in user. So this is the main page, the main content. We have our username and profile picture in the top corner now, which are clickable links to our profile. And this is the most recent activity on the feed page. So here's a forum. we've got our dev news, our events, and our recent jobs. On the forum, we can see the poster there, which is a clickable link to the user's profile. We can then follow that user if we like, and unfollow, and that will be added to our profile. Okay, so back to the our profile now. So this is our profile. So we can choose a file to upload as a profile picture. So we'll do that now. We'll add a profile picture, upload, and then we'll just refresh the page. And there's our user picture now, our profile picture. We can also add links for Code Wars and LinkedIn. So I'll add our links here. And then when we add the socials, Code Wars appears to the side. This is pulling information from our Code Wars profile. With our rank and leaderboard, we can click on our username and that will take us to our profile page on Code Wars. So back to the page. So we'll now go to the news section. So this is connected to Hacker News and Reddit technology. This is pulling live information from both the sites. It's the top 10 articles. It updates dynamically and we can click on the links and that will take us to our news. Okay, and then down to the forum. So this is a discussion for devs where we can discuss job hunting, career advice, news discussions and events discussions. We can make a new post here. So I'll just pop a title in and then we'll choose the category and write something. And then we post this and we'll go over to the events discussions where we posted it and we can now see our post with our profile picture, username. We can upvote and we can downvote. And if we click on the post itself, we can then comment on the post too. So we'll add a comment and there we go. And we'll see our comment down below and we can upvote and downvote on the comments as well. So onto the events section next. So here we've added tech events where we've got attendees and people that are interested, and we can also share this on our social media. So we've got links to Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn there. Back to the site and down to careers. So we've added some jobs here. So this is somewhere you can look for jobs and click on apply now, which will open up your mail and you can apply for your job through there. And then lastly, we've got the learning resources as well. So we've added some learning resources that we found very useful in our journey, and these are all clickable links as well. And then going back to the page, we can click on home or we can click on DWP in the corner to take us home as well. And we have our highlights bar on the right. So we've added a Code Wars daily challenge here. This is pulled from Code Wars. We can choose the language and we can click to train it. It'll take us to our Code Wars daily challenge with the selected language. We have the top stories of the day, which is pulled from the news section. So this is the top 3 stories from there. We have the featured events, which comes from our events section. And we have the 2 of our favorite resources that we've also included from our learning resources section. Again, all clickable links. And then if we go to the top of the page, we can now log out. Are we sure? Yep. And now we're on the back to the page, we can see that our username and profile has disappeared in the corner with the sign up option instead. And some of the features of the site are now enabled. So we can't upvote or downvote, and we can't make posts, and we can't go to the profile as well. And there we go. Thank you very much. I'll pass you over to Ed. You muted, Ed.
As to how we approach teamwork, as I said before, we were all familiar with each other and would all worked with each other before. Because of that understanding, we didn't decide to have any one of us as a designated leader or manager. We tried to work as a collective with a lot of discussion, and we were trusting in each other's just kind of confidence and abilities. So we chose our tickets on Trello as we felt. We made sure to stay very well connected. We met 3 times a day, having stand-ups at the start of the day at 9 and at lunch, after lunch at 2, to check in and make sure we all knew what we were doing, and a mini retro at 4:30 to wind down and share how the day had gone. We partook in a mixture of paired and solo work with the intent of staying flexible and being available if our help was needed by someone else. And just overall, there was an understanding that we aren't competing with each other, that we're all going to find different things difficult, and we're all going to complete different amounts of work, and that all our contributions are valuable, which just help reduce pressure and encourage engagement. As to what we're proud of, as a team, we're really proud of what we've managed to achieve in quite a short amount of time, and we're really happy with the product. We're happy with the timely fashion of how we were able to reach our MVP. The fact that we didn't have to rush to implement all our main features allowed us to make things more tidy and more robust. From a technical standpoint, we're really pleased with how we've managed to pull live data from Reddit and Hacker News, and how kind of dynamic that makes the site feel. How we were able to connect to Code Wars as well, both in the profile and in the sidebar kata. And we think we did really well attempting and approaching just a fairly significant new tech stack in general, embracing the challenge of learning as we worked, and our understanding of the reality of how complex some of the tasks we set ourselves were. And we're really satisfied with the look, how it's easily navigable. From the start, we wanted to make it straightforward to get around and find things on the site, and we really felt like we managed that. And personally, I'm really, really proud of how much fun we were able to have doing it, despite the difficulties. We got to enjoy each other's company. I'll pass you on to Sophie.
Hi everyone, we wanted to share some key takeaways and skills that we've learned from this project together. So one of our big lessons was around picking up new frameworks. When we first began, we dove into quite a complex task involving user authentication, which proved a bit overwhelming for us. We think for future projects, we'll consider starting with smaller, less intricate tasks to get a feel for frameworks before tackling bigger things. So the skills we've learned, so despite the initial hurdle, the project really helped us develop valuable skills. We became much more confident and comfortable at reading documentation. The project also pushed us to learn quickly and adapt to new concepts and libraries. Beyond the framework itself, we gained a stronger understanding of how code bases function. We improved our ability to trace data flow between different files and grasp what different functions within those files actually do. Because SvelteKit often uses a lot of components, one feature can involve passing data between many different files, which became much more comfortable for us all as we got more used to the framework. This project also highlighted for us the importance of collaboration. There were times when we got stuck where we learnt the value of asking for help from our teammates, and through this process we all honed our debugging skills as well. And I'll pass you back to Simon.
All in all, it's been a very intense but rewarding couple of weeks working on this project. It's also been great practice working in a real world scenario, with the bonus that we're all based in the same office at DWP, so we'll actually be working in the same environment in the near future. We've had more than a few ideas as to how we move forward with the website, potentially even putting it into production and having a live version that others can use and contribute to. So stay tuned, we might even have some merchandise in the near future. Thank you for watching. We'll hand back to the coaches and look forward to seeing what the other teams have been building.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and very well done for your project. I think it would have been very useful. I remember starting my own coding journey as a junior engineer, and I feel like something like this would have been really useful. So I think it's a really great product, so definitely keep working on it. Do we have any questions for team devs with problems? You can either use the chat or just speak up and ask the question. No? Okay. Well, thank you very much, devs with problems. We will move on to the next team, which today is going to be tutor match.
Hello, we're Tutor Match, a charity that helps to connect volunteer tutors who want to make a difference with students from underprivileged backgrounds who need a little bit of extra help to achieve what they're truly capable of. Or at least we would be if this weren't a final project of the Makers Bootcamp. Our concept came together when we were given the category Tech for Good. Initially, we threw around a few different ideas, but when the suggestion of education and tutoring came up, we all thought this would be a great solution to a real problem. There are a lot of GCSE and A-level students who could do with a bit more help outside school, but who just can't afford to pay for a private tutor. The idea behind this website is that we'd connect those students with teachers, professors, and subject experts who have the time and willingness to make a difference. It was an idea that was scalable. At its very simplest, it could be a web page with a list of tutors on it, but had the potential to be so much more. To show you our finished product, here's Kat and Simon.
Thank you, Anne. So we're going to have a look at the demo of our page, Tutor Match. Starting on our homepage, you can find general information about our project. At the bottom of the page, we have About Us module. It shows all of the collaborators along with the hyperlinks to our GitHub repositories as well. When we click on the Create Free Account button, it takes us to the sign up page that can also be accessed through the navbar at the top. Our sign up uses Firebase for authentication services, and password have safety requirements, which you can see now below the form. When typing the password, once those requirements are met, the messages are disappearing dynamically. If we try to create an account with an email that already exists in our database, we have an error, as you can see at the top. We can also choose which account we want to create, a tutor or a student account, and we'll show you the tutor site first. Tutor accounts require admin authorization, so with an initial sign up, the profile page displays information about the account awaiting background checks. So the account initially is kind of inactive. Each account is created with a default profile picture, which can be updated by the users, and we can also add a little About Me section at the bottom. As I mentioned before, at this point, the account requires safeguarding checks to go live. So at this point, we're going to show you how we log in as an admin account to approve those pending tutors account, taking obviously that we've already checked the DBSs. So at the moment, the authorization happens outside of of our page. However, with enough time, we would implement a section on the tutor dashboard, ideally, for those identification and safeguarding, so it can all happen kind of throughout one platform. Once tutors is approved, as you can see on the video, their accounts will then go live. So if we log back in as an existing tutor, that account has been already approved by admin, then we're going to see that the tutor's dashboard, or their profile page, if you like, looks slightly different now. So on the submit, we're going to see we've got a section requested bookings. It's a section for the bookings that student requested with us. We've got My Tutoring Sessions. We'll show sessions that has been approved by us already. And we can update our availability. The slots are implemented. We implemented it in 1 hour slots, assuming that the tutoring session will last in about 45 to 60 minutes. And then on the left-hand side, under our profile, we can choose the subject and grades we specialize in. And at this point, our tutor account is fully set up. We are live, so we can wait for students to request tutoring session. And I will pass on to Simon, who will show you now a student side of Tutor Match.
Thanks very much, Kat. That's right. So now we're going to see the use case for organising a tutoring session, including searching for a tutor, requesting a session, and confirming that session. So when an existing student logs in with the right password, they're taken to the search page where they're able to search by subject and by grade. That then returns a list of tutors that have that subject at that grade registered to their profile, and clicking on the tutor's name, we're taken to their profile page. We can read some reviews about what that tutor is like. We could look at the About Me, and after we've had a tutoring session with them, we can even leave a 5-star review for them as well. On the right-hand side of the page, we can then see that tutor's availability, and clicking on a date and a time, a request can be sent to that tutor for a tutoring session. So if we log out as a student and then log in as that tutor, and we'll know to log in because we've had an email notification, we'll see that a request for a tutoring session appears. The tutor is able to accept or deny the tutoring session, and that session then shows up in the My Tutoring Session section of both the tutor and the student's profile pages, with the additional email notifications to let everyone know that the tutoring is going to happen. So that demonstrates how students and tutors can connect on Tutor Match. I'll pass you over to Dan now.
Thank you. So I will give a brief overview of our learning process and experience. It started out with some comprehensive planning, We spent the entire first day planning all of this, such as database structure, page sketches, user flow, and MVP outline was centralized on a Miro board. This was really useful as it allowed for quick and easy reference to anything we needed to look back on or reevaluate. We started out with a very enthusiastic brainstorm of features and user interactions that could be implemented. This was made more realistic and consolidated into an MVP you can see on the right. Towards the end of the first week, we actually reevaluated our MVP as it was felt it included more than just the core functionality and essential features of our idea. So we split it into stages, with stage 1 adhering closer to MVP principles and further stages being iterative improvements on that. I'll briefly mention our tech stack, but won't go into too much detail. The technologies we used are listed here. Given that this was going to be a lightweight and short-term application, any mainstream tech stack would have been reasonable, but we used this opportunity to join together 2 languages and frameworks we'd used in isolation, but never together. And we also used the opportunity to learn some tools we weren't familiar with, such as React, Bootstrap, and Firebase. Moving on to the next slide and shared understanding. This is really important for an enjoyable and productive project. We used the Trello board to help manage our workflow. This was reviewed in all the daily meetings, which meant we had a shared understanding of what was being worked on and by who, and therefore prevented any repetition of work or overlapping of efforts. In terms of shared understanding of the code base, this is often difficult when we're all learning and the workflow is quick, but by demoing features and sharing code during our meetings and leaving comments in the code base, we could improve our understanding of what others had done. I think the graph on the right sums up the whole experience quite well. At the start, there's a lot of enthusiasm and grand ideas of what we could accomplish. In the middle, there's certainly a dip when we realize everything takes much longer than anticipated. And then at the end, there's a reignition of enthusiasm when features start being implemented and everyone feels more comfortable and confident in what they're doing. I will pass you over now to Leah.
Thanks, Dan. So continuing with workflow implementation, we used the Agile methodology, which allowed us to maintain communication and productivity. During our sprints, we alternated leadership in our structured daily meetings. These included morning stand-ups for task allocation via our Trello board, afternoon catch-ups to review progress, and our end-of-day retrospectives for reflection and strategy. These practices significantly boosted our focus and overall productivity. Now, it wouldn't be a Makers project without a few challenges here and there. Despite effective practices, we encountered challenges including resource scarcity on-prem. We addressed this by applying lessons from our Makers journey and embracing pair programming. Prioritizing security, especially with sensitive data like API keys, posed another hurdle. To mitigate risks, we adopted best practices, securely storing information in .env files. Furthermore, we mastered the technique of reversing commits pushed to GitHub to enhance security. These challenges have been pivotal in our growth and learning journey. We'd like to thank you for listening to our presentation and welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Tutor Match. I think that's a very interesting project, and as a former high school teacher, I can definitely see how useful that would be to kind of remove the cost barrier to access tuition. And I think the interface is so seamless, it would be very easy for students to also access that. So very well done. Are there any questions for Team Tutor Match? Cool. So if there are no questions, we will move on to Team Bakers.
Is Piers here? Share your screen.
I am here, but for some reason, it's not sharing.
Do you need the backup?
We might need the backup.
You're just making an excuse, aren't you? Right, let me see if I can share it instead.
We can see your screen, Amy.
Oh. Right. Okay, I've not actually done the slide control, so we'll see how we get on.
Great news. I think I can do it. Can we see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, we are Team Bakers. Sorry about that. We've been making an app called, a game called Bakers versus Ducks. Tom will give us the overview initially.
As Piers said, we are Team Bakers. We have developed a single-player tower defense game using JavaScript and HTML. The game is called Bakers versus Ducks. The idea of the game was based off of Plants vs Zombies. In the game, you are a baker defending your bakery from an army of ducks using your bread as weapons. The goal of the game is to get the highest score as you can while fending off the ever-growing army of ducks. I will pass you on to Johnny to talk about our planning process for the game.
Yeah, so the tech stack was pretty simple. We just chose JavaScript and HTML just to keep it simple. I'm all pretty familiar with that as well. We also had brainstorming sessions throughout the overall project just to decide on ideas like enemy types, overall theme, defender types, etc. Next, we decided on MVPs, such as being able to lose the game, deal damage to enemies and being able to eliminate them, have an overall score, have defenses that can take damage and be destroyed, have an economy by gaining and spending money, and having a main menu with a start game button with a tutorial page. And we also use Trello and Excalibur just to track ideas and tickets during the whole process. So I'll just pass on to Amy.
Remember to unmute. I was worried about that one. So when in the planning stages, we agreed as a group how regularly we wanted to meet. So each day we had a morning stand up, then after lunch check-in and a final one at the end of the day. This worked well to ensure that we had regular communication with the entire group. The testers also came to these meetings, so they were kept in the loop with how development was progressing. I was absent for a couple of days last week, but the team were able to bring me back up to speed quickly during our morning check-ins, and I'm very grateful to Tom and Josh, who spent some time taking me through some of the code for the game development side of things, so that was really useful. We predominantly either worked in pairs or we were at least sat in a Zoom meeting room together, so we could work on individual tasks separately, but could discuss issues as they arose and ask each other for assistance as needed. We ensured we protected our main branch on GitHub so we couldn't directly push to the main branch, and any merge requests required 2 approvers. This actually proved effective, as one time there was a pull request that was actually going to erase all the previous code additions for that day, but because we had the code reviewed first, it meant the branch wasn't merged and we could rectify this issue. Overall, I'd say we had good team morale, worked well together and communicated effectively. We even had the chance to celebrate Josh's birthday in one of our check-in sessions. I'll pass you on to Josh now.
Oh, thank you. So like Amy mentioned, we did actually have a couple testers in our team. And to be honest, at first, as devs, we had no idea what to expect. It was very much just, what are we supposed to do? Do we give them anything to do in the meantime while we set everything up and get everything working? But in the end, we decided the best course of action would just be to treat them like a dev. Invite them to all of our meetings, invite them to sit in with us, just so they can get a better understanding of what we're actually doing as we're going along. So the main part of the testers being there was just a great experience for the pair of us. So yeah, I will now pass you on to Kate and Sean, who are our testers, to tell you a little bit more about what they did within our team.
Hi guys, yeah, they got lumped with us, so that was fun. We had never tested a game before and they had never built a game before, so it was all new ground for all of us. They were also using a language that we didn't know, which made it extra tricky for us, but they were really accommodating. Like Josh said, we sat in with meetings with them and asked questions as we went along and made them try and think outside the box. They also made sure to test all their stuff as they were going, which was great. This is an example of a bug that we found. So we would log our bugs on GitHub and on the Trello board with screenshots and how to sort of reproduce them. So here you can see we've got the mouse between two grid squares. So if you clicked on this mouse on the square, it would place a baker on the side. I'll pass over to Sean, who'll talk you through how we sort of logged it and how they dealt with it.
So yeah, as Kate said, we primarily used GitHub to address like major bug reports and all of the bugs that we encountered. We also did use Trello just to keep all of the sort of changes we need to make in one place. So while developers were looking at tickets they could pick up, they also could see bugs and go, oh, we should probably fix that as well. Most of our GitHub pushes were like the higher priority ones were mentioned in stand-up meetings, which we had quite regularly. And if we thought a bug was sort of being dealt with in a specific coding ticket, we'd go in and see that pair of developers and we'd say, we found this bug and it's related to what you're doing. Do you mind having a look at it, seeing if you could fix it where you are now? And the developers were usually quite good on staying on top of it. So yeah, I'll pass you on to whoever's next.
Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm going to be showing you around our game Bakers versus Ducks. When we launched the game, this is what we're presented with. This is the home screen. Initially, I'll show you the how to play. This just gives us a brief synopsis of the game itself. It has a little explanation on the defenders we have available to us, as well as the types of enemies we're going to be encountering. When we actually launched the game, we're presented with this screen. As you can see on the left, we have the bakery, and on the right, we have the pond. At the bottom of the screen, we have our controls bar, where we can actually select each of the individual bakers. The bakers themselves have their own set of attributes: cost, hit points, range, and damage. In the top right, we have a pause and a quit button. The pause will just stop gameplay if you need to stop it for whatever reason, and then if you click it again, it will resume gameplay. Next to that, we have a quit button, which will just bring you back to the home screen. In the top left, we have the score, the amount of breadcrumbs, and what level you are. Breadcrumbs is the currency for the game. As you can see at the bottom with the cost, that refers to the amount of breadcrumbs. The ducks themselves, as I mentioned, they'll spawn from the pond and then walk towards the bakery. Much like the bakers, the ducks have their own set of attributes: hit points, damage dealt, as well as walking speed. Upon defeating a duck, you can see in the top left that our score on our breadcrumbs goes up. When the ducks come into contact with a baker, they'll drain the baker's health. Once the baker's health reaches 0, the baker is then removed from the grid and the duck continue on its path. As you can see here, we've got 2 ducks which are about to reach the bakery, which will present us a losing screen, where we are shown a final score. The only thing we can do at this point is go back to the main menu where we can start another game. Thank you for watching. Hello.
So this is just our README. We thought it would be important to sort of, you know, if you've never used the game, we thought we'd just give a bit of information as well as sort of the tech stack we use. Just showing it here nicely. I will now pass it to Holly, who will explain some of the things we would like to do if we had more time.
Thank you. So a couple of things that we would focus on if we had some more time would be integrating a back-end system to enhance data management, allowing for account creation and saving of user scores and games. We would also aim to introduce different customizable difficulty options and accessibility features to make the game enjoyable and inclusive for all players. Finally, we would prioritize researching and implementing advanced technologies to future-proof the project, ensuring adaptability to emerging technologies and standards. And thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Tim. Yes, look, it's such a fun game. I do have to say, I still think the croissant should be like the most powerful weapon, but that's my French bias talking there. I feel just the boomerang is all, the croissant was amazing. Do we have any questions for Tim Bakers? Again, so you can use the chat functionality as well, or just speak up if so. No. Right, thank you very much. So we'll move on to the last thing for today, which is Scores Easy.
Hey everyone, and welcome to our project Scoresphere. So as a group of sports enthusiasts, we wanted to come up with an app that was sort of like live scores. People could see what was happening in games. And we knew there was a big market out there already. What we wanted to do is make this a bit more personalized so users can create their own events. Perhaps they played in an amateur league and they could then share that with their sporting community. So here is the demo of our app. Welcome to Scoresphere, the live score updater. So as we can see in the homepage, we've got a list of matches. A number of these have already been played and some of them are in the future. Now we can filter through these by clicking on the schedule button for matches in the future, and then we can click on finished to see those matches that have taken place, and if we want to see some scores. We've also got a live bit feature filter, which we can see which matches are currently being played. And at the moment, there aren't any matches. So what we can do is we can sign up. If we enter our credentials, and we have a couple of validation checks to make sure that what we're putting in is nice and secure. So if we put in a password that doesn't meet requirements, then we're asked to do that again. So this time we'll ensure that we've got a password that meets that criteria. And this time we redirect the sign-in page. Again, if we put in any of this incorrectly, we can see that we've been checked. The account doesn't exist in that case. And then if our password is incorrect, we are asked to put in the correct password for the account. So hopefully this will work. And we are now back in the live match center page. Now we've got a number of features. If we click on my profile, we've got a profile page, and we've got our name and points and achievements. Now we can update that, and we will update the username, and we can see now we've got an achievement, we've changed our name, and we've got a notification that that has been awarded. We can also add a personalized photo. And again, we can see our points have been updated. We've got our photo there, and it's added to our achievements. We've also got notifications of that happening. Now, if we click on my matches, and this is where we can keep our friends and family, our community updated with any sort of matches we're involved in. So let's just say we've got a match in the future, and that's going to be next week, and it's going to start at 10 a.m. And we've got our local team City against some rivals, United. We can also personalize these by adding some logos, and we can have the match now in the match center by submitting that match. And we can see that this match is going to be played next week, so it should be in our scheduled filter, and we can see it is there. Now, let's fast forward a week. We have gone to our match, and it is being played, so we're going to change that match status. So that is now a live match. Now, if we go to the admin page, we can control that. And to be able to see this more clearly, we can see both events happening at the same time. So we're going to go back to our match center page, and we're going to see this update in real time. So our friends and family might be curious to see this City versus United score, and I'm there at the match, and City have scored, so we can add a goal, and we can see that that is automatically updated. And we can see that that live score is happening. Again, if we want to filter these, so we just see live matches, we can see that we now have that live score and only that live matches. And finally, we can sign up. If we want to sign it, we can sign in again. That is ScoreSphere. Thank you for your time. Welcome to ScoreSphere, the technical issues. There we go. So in terms of our learning journey, we started off by using Miro to share some ideas and sort of brainstormed on a few different things we could do, app features, and created some user stories. This was also the point in which we started discussing the database, which did actually change as we moved through the project. And also we came up with some wireframes, which initially was going to be the idea. And again, that did change over time for our website.
Yeah, so after sorting out our initial plans, we did realize the importance of familiarizing ourselves with the new technology. So because we wanted a real-time application, it was important to look for technologies that would help us with this real-time application, which perform the time-critical operations. So we looked at the Signal. Yeah.
So we didn't actually have any experience of this technology, and it was a lot of preparation and sort of planning, looking through online documentation, video demonstrations, Stack Overflow, before we were sort of able to get an idea of how we were going to be able to do this. It was a lot of trial and error. We sometimes took a long time to get things working how we wanted them. Sometimes they didn't actually work at all like we wanted them to. But I think the most important thing is that as a team, we were quite patient and we were quite resilient in terms of developing the things that we wanted to.
So in terms of our project workflow, to keep our task in check, we turn to Trello. So by organizing the tickets on Trello, it really helped us to guide our workflow and ensure that we was on track with all our project milestones throughout. So also every morning we also held stand-up meetings as well to plan our day and discuss some blockers that were stopping our progress. So throughout, despite even though we had the challenges, we was able to deal with some of the challenges that came up, especially for the first week, which one of the challenges was implementing Signal in the first place. So yeah.
When we started, we often worked as a 3, and this was a pro in the sense that it allowed us to get an understanding of the whole app, so we could see what was going on in the front end and the back end. However, it did mean that sometimes we were quite slow in terms of developing features. So later in the project, when we had a better understanding of the app as a whole, we were able to work more independently on separate features, and then just making sure we were checking in regularly with any updates, code reviews. We also use retros at the end of the day for reflection on what had happened during the day and how we could move forward with what we'd done in that day.
So we did manage to come up for a few challenges. So setting up the project within the first few days, it took a while, especially trying to get that Signal to work. Also, we also tried to use an API to get live scores, which was quite difficult. So then I tried to use web scraping in order to get live scores from the internet as well. But it also proved to be quite difficult in terms of implementing it as well. So we did come up with a lot of challenges. Yeah.
And that is the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. And it's such an interesting way, like, to be able to share the excitement with the rest of your family and your friends. Because sometimes it's easy to just check the news on your own, but when you've got a platform like that, when you can just share with everyone else, I think it makes it really fun. So very nicely done. Do we have, and also may I mention as well, the live feature that you implemented is really tricky as well, like having this kind of like real-time change of information. So that was quite a big chunk of work that was done there as well. Do we have any questions for Team Scores Easy? No? Or, oh, sorry. Sorry, or maybe any questions for any of the teams that we've seen today, if you've had time to think of something else. No, so if that's not the case, then I'd like to say a big thank you to all the teams today that presented. And again, so I've said that a few times today, but I think it's really important to look back and kind of take stock of the enormous amount of progress that you've made just in the past 4 months. I think it's really brilliant to see, you know, going from, again, the basics into full stack web applications using a wide variety of technologies and being able to pick up new technologies really quick. So I really hope that you now feel confident that you can learn anything and kind of build anything after your experience here with us at Makers. And I'd like to say as well, it's been really lovely working with you, and I'm really excited to see what you do next. And I hope that your first role will be rewarding and challenging in all the best ways, and that you will enjoy your next few steps in the world of software engineering. Thank you very much.
We can hear you.
Hey, yes.
Hey, yes, cool. Yes. Okay, cool. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Roy. I'm a technical coach at Makers, and I head up the DevOps or cloud engineering speciality, or specialism as it's known. So I have the great pleasure of introducing the cohorts that we call January Cloud 24, because that's when they started their specialism. And these fine folks have done some software engineering training on what we call like the foundations part of the course before electing to move into the cloud/DevOps space. With us, they have learned all sorts of exciting things, such as containerization, CI/CD pipelines. They've worked with technologies such as Terraform and Kubernetes. They've learned about concepts such as infrastructure as code, and container orchestration. They've learned a great deal about security, and this most recent and I suppose graduating project works slightly differently for us in the specialism. So in order to give everybody a consistent experience, rather than pitching it's kind of like a blue sky project, as it were, instead what our teams do is they inherit a very, very broken system, and boy is it bust, and it runs like an absolute dog, and they have very, very little entry points where they can kind of like get involved and start making changes. We simulate an environment where there is very unpredictable traffic source in a fictional client of veterinary hospitals. And they are also sandwiched between the client and a very, very unhelpful provider who we're being brought in to replace, who won't give our teams any help or access to the system or code or anything like that. And we tasked them with armed with just access to a humble load balancer to come in and completely turn around the reliability stats of this system. And I'm very pleased to say that every single team on this call today was wildly successful. But let's have them tell you that. So I would first like to introduce one of 3 teams. This is Team Red. Can I have a representative from Team Red, please? You can. Hello. Amazing. That's Joe. Hi. Hi, Joe.
Yeah. Are we ready to share and plug and play then?
We're ready to go. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Good. So hopefully everybody can see the start of a presentation now.
Looks good.
Right. Take it away, Zach.
Okay. Hi everyone. We're Red Team.
and we're going to tell you the story of our experience over the last 2 weeks. So once upon a time, there was a veterinary hospital, and the staff at this hospital all used a website by a provider called HOSP to keep track of all the information they needed, the patient details, notes, etc. But this website was very unreliable, with slow response times sometimes failing to even work at all. So we were challenged with making the existing service more reliable and hopefully more secure. As DevOps learners, we were somewhat in the dark, and we took the majority of the first day to establish that the only part of the system we had access to was something called the load balancer, which sits between the user's computer and the website, directing their requests to the right place. We would have to be inventive, and because everyone was going to have different ideas, it would take solid team working skills. And this was a real strong point for us as a team. Something we've all had to perfect over the duration of the course is knowing the current boundaries of your own knowledge, being comfortable admitting what you don't yet understand, and being prepared to ask for help and make mistakes. A good example of this was on day one, when we had the idea to make multiple versions of the HOSP website, so it wouldn't be overloaded by user requests at busy times. Unfortunately, without actually having access to the HOSP website to build a template from, trying to make copies led to sending users requests to blank websites. And watching our performance stats rapidly drop following this was a learning experience. So we quickly reverted our changes and decided that more research would be required before making further changes to the live system.
The team continued their adventure, so we had to defeat the challenge of a long-term solution. As the team fought on, we came up with a plan to replace the entire system the client would be using, with the end goal of increasing reliability. We came together and we developed an attack plan. We put all our ideas into a pool and cherry-picked which features we wanted. We decided we would then split up into pairs and work on separate tasks, but while remaining in contact with the whole team for advice. We decided to place a man in the middle, which will collect any data passed to and from the HOSP service, allowing us to slowly transition to the new service a little at a time. But this team knew Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither would their masterpiece. We needed a short-term solution. Once again, we came together, shared our thoughts, and asked many, many questions. We ensured we had good communication, and most importantly, plenty of tea for Benjamin. We decided to put a retrier in place that would keep sending any failing requests back to the HOSP server until they got a good response. At first, it seemed quite successful.
So while this retrier was working, we were hit by massive user requests on Friday, leading to a noticeable decline in our success rate. While the success rate was going down, we recognized the urgency of the situation and immediately shifted all our focus to identify these underlying issues and what needs to be done to resolve this issue. As a team, we decided it would be best to have a rota of 2 people on support who will monitor the statistics panel and drop tasks to respond to this crisis, which we found to be a very strategic decision as it helped massively over the next few days and proved to be quite instrumental in mitigating the impact over the subsequent days. Importantly, while these designated support members were at the forefront of resolving the issues, the rest of the team remained focused on their task. The division of this labor ensured that we could address the problem effectively without compromising on other essential responsibilities.
Come Tuesday, things were expected to go smoothly, but we didn't quite expect what was to come. Early on in the day, we'd received an influx of errors because HOSP's website couldn't handle all the user requests it was getting during periods of heavy use, which was a healthy reminder of the proactive and alert attitude necessary when working under the pressure of a system that's already in use. In the new setup mentioned previously, our process was to scrupulously analyze the monitoring data for all our systems, conducting experiments to isolate the root cause of the errors that were coming through. We'd previously found an outdated version of a program causing errors from the first wave of Hive traffic on Friday, which meant things worked well over the weekend, but our system wasn't yet solid enough to handle this new wave, leading us to devise a short-term solution. In the early days, we'd created that man-in-the-middle system, essentially an intermediary between a website and a user. And that had the dual purpose of intercepting incoming traffic from users so that we could eventually populate the new database we planned to set up, but also probing a security flaw, which was the rudimentary way in which user data had been encrypted in the host system. We decided to repurpose this man in the middle to keep sending requests back until they were successful and securely store frequently requested data for quicker access. Our solution resulted in improved response times and mitigated errors during peak hours. Even though our rate wasn't quite perfect, we were getting closer to achieving the 99% resilience mark under heavy pressure and devised new ways to optimize the long-term solution.
So, in the end, we saved the vet hospitals from the ever-looming spectre of unreliability. Requests that the vets were making were coming back with at least a 99% rate success rate by the end of the 2-week period. But to make sure that they lived happily ever after, there are some extra steps that we wanted to consider. The vets would be better off, we thought, if they could rely on a system with more cooperative owners. And we came up with a fairly comprehensive plan for how to build a robust replacement for as much of HOSP's website as possible. It'd even have baked in ways to scale up and handle busier periods. But lurking over the hill between us and implementing that new system were some potential hurdles. Firstly, we didn't have a copy of all the records that existed within the old system. And secondly, HOSP owned a proprietary service that screens images of the vet's patients and determines how healthy they are. And we had no clue how that worked. Fortunately, we were able to plan ways for our proposed replacement service to automatically build a full database and sync things up as it went along by routinely probing the HOSP service for anything that was currently missing. But the image screening was a slightly more challenging sort of enemy. We did start to develop a program that would investigate that and try to reverse engineer it. And our next chapter, if we were to continue, would be to turn those plans into a real product. But now that we've read the whole story, the yellow brick road seems glaringly obvious to us. Our heroes could have been getting consistently good responses to the users from day one, if only they'd known at the time that they could tell the man in the middle how to store the data that was requested most often. But in reality, we didn't know that. The best change we could have made, looking back now, would have been something more pragmatic. So, for example, designating the first responders to deal with crisis situations at an earlier point in our working process would have been a better way of making sure that we made progress consistently. It was dramatically easier after we implemented that change to our sort of working system to continue work on different features that we wanted to implement when we were secure in the knowledge and the trust that another team member had things in hand. And that's where we ended up. We've enjoyed the whole process and had a great time. Thank you for listening to us.
Wonderful work. Thank you so much. That was a very entertaining story. Great. Does anyone have any? Is it okay to field some questions?
Absolutely, we'll field questions. Yeah.
Lovely. Does anybody have any questions for Team Red?
Hi, I'll jump in if you don't mind. I don't have any questions. First of all, well done to you all. It was more of an observation because you really took us on a journey for your last 2 weeks. And I appreciate how well you broke down the presentation, not only in terms of the explanations for somebody who isn't technically gifted like me, explaining some terminology that perhaps if you hadn't, I wouldn't have understood the journey and the story that you were telling us, but also how well you thought through the ways of working with each other and understanding sort of the resource and your skill limitations. You took what you had and you worked with it rather than, you know, stamping your feet and crossing your arms and thinking, oh, well, how are we going to do this? You know, you didn't just panic. You were like, right, what can we do here? And there was
I assure you, we certainly did panic.
But you didn't tell us that, though. It sounded like everything was under control. And I felt that there was a lot of confidence in terms of what you were saying. And there was a real feeling of cohesion of working together. And it sounded like you did get an absolute car crash. I think, Roy, you said it was a dog. I'm not sure what you said, but it was a right car crash. And you turned it into something that was really successful. And it was really important to me, anyway, listening to you, that you did actually enjoy what you did, and that did seem genuine. So what you were saying, how you were saying it, and how it was received did seem all to stack up. So I appreciated the humour as an audience member. So I thought it was a really good presentation. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Here, second that massively. Any more questions or comments from the audience before we move on to the next team? Okay, Team Blue, you're up next. Harry, you might need to unmute if you're going first.
Hi, welcome to our Blue reliability project. I'm going to introduce you to Sean, I believe, who's going to get us started.
Hello. So we are Team Blue, made up of George, Joe, Troy, Harry, and myself, Sean. So this is just a small overview of the challenge that we faced. So we had very little of work. Access to the code base, we only had access to the load balancer and some documentation. So our job was to work within those tight constraints and utilize what we were given. We needed to read the documentation, adjust the load balancer, which helps to delegate internet traffic, but then build on that, implement some features around it to improve both the success rate of requests and the robustness of the system with downtime, whilst at the same time adding in an extra layer of security. So in between the load balancer, which is in the middle, and the HOS web server, which is on the far right, that's where we're going to be doing most of our work. The gravity of the situation was we had very little to work with, but we needed to give ourselves some breathing space and then create a foundation to build on. Next slide, please, Harry. So our objectives: 1, maintain system functionality while improving its reliability and security. 2, enhance observability to understand and monitor the system's performance better. And then 3, address security vulnerabilities without disrupting current operations. So I'll pass you over to Troy.
Thank you. Yeah, so very simplified solutions here. It's like a bad film where you start at the end and we work backwards. But our sort of process was, if you don't succeed at first, try again. And if you don't succeed then, try again. And once it did start to succeed, you do, like most people these days, you want things quicker, you want the information quicker. So, you know, we had to implement that as well. But our first real step actually was getting visibility. So, Harry, next slide, please. Sorry. Yeah, so we had to get visibility because we weren't given a lot. As you saw from the previous group, the panel that we were given was lacking information. We have no idea what the errors were. We had very little to work with. So we set up logging so that we could see the requests coming in, what was happening to them, and then we stored them in an S3 bucket, which you could imagine as a sort of virtual filing cabinet to store all of the logs that we were getting. But I don't know if you've ever looked at an S3 log. They are horrendous. They can be 500 lines long. So it really brought us to the next slide, which was an application that we made. I don't know, we called it Troy's little application, but it wasn't. It was a team effort. So what we were doing was passing the logs, and you can imagine that as watching football highlights. You haven't got time to watch the full game. You only want specific bits. So we developed an application to look for the specific bits we were looking for, which was the errors that we were getting, which was causing the failures on the panel. I'll pass you over to George and he can explain it a bit more.
Thank you, Troy. So as he was saying, obviously we had errors. We needed to find out what they were. So the first thing to do was get the visibility of what the errors were. So we said, we'll start with a band-aid approach to fix the errors, so that we can quickly apply it, quickly monitor it, and make little quick changes if we need to. So we made an image, which is essentially make something on my PC or somebody else's PC and put it somewhere else so that it can run by itself. And then we put it on a server to sit in the middle make sure it works. Hopefully it's good. Just stare at the panel, hope it's good. Once it was somewhat stable, we moved to trying to make a cheaper option because everyone likes it to be cheaper. So we moved on to a Lambda function, which is essentially like a pay-as-you-go service. You only pay when you use it, not all the time. So it usually works out cheaper depending on how much you're using it. As we moved on, and as you saw from the other team's dashboard, traffic ramped up very quickly at one point because there was a very busy day at the hospitals, and it became very apparent very quickly that the lovely backend server that we had couldn't handle that. And much like the other team, there were panic moments as everything suddenly seemed to crash down around us and we couldn't figure out why. So we decided, hey, we need to go, what are people asking for? Is it changing often? No, let's store it somewhere, give it to them from there so we can kind of get rid of this little back end problem. So if we go to the next slide, we did try to implement this in our Lambda function because it has a nice little back-end system called CloudWatch, which is essentially your manager staring into your files and picking lots of little bits of information out and telling you that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. So it's very quick, very easy to understand, and very easy to follow. The only issue we had with that was one of our members who was primarily working on it did go off ill. So our main driving force behind that function kind of tailed off. So we had to move back to the Band-Aid solution and implement and expand on that. So if we can move forward, we expanded on that and we got it working to handle more after the caching. And then we thought, right, what are our stretch goals? Like, we want to make it more secure. We want to make it so that people can't log on and go, I'm going to say that Jen did this note and do something terrible with it. So we made sure that people can only post notes as themselves or use the system as themselves. We added in the functionality for caching. So we pull the image down, get the response, store it, and then say to them, right, is this still valid? Let's check the back end every now and again to make sure nobody's added anything, which really helped to actually get the responses back quicker. In our live system, we did only implement the caching and the authorization and the HTTPS, but in our development system that we hadn't fully tested and fully put out, we did have the other two goals, which were to store results from the screening and to actually let the client see who was logging in and who was actually doing work and what they did. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass you over to Harry, who's going to give you a good overview of the system.
Hi. So this is what our load balancer looked like, and it's configured to handle incoming web traffic. For those who haven't heard of a load balancer before or think of it as quite technical, I like to think of it as an executive assistant of sorts, which oversees all calls in the office and decides which calls go where, so any individual person doesn't get overwhelmed. Our load balancer had 5 rules, which you can see in the second column, and they determine how to direct the traffic. There are 4 distinct target groups, which each consist of a resource like the server instance or a Lambda function to which the traffic is forwarded to. Each of these groups have a single respective target, which you can see in the final column. And each of those is a specific resource designated to receive traffic on its assigned port. Now here you can see our overview of everything. It looks quite complicated. I'm going to explain it all. So imagine you're at a busy train station with trains arriving. The controller is in the DNS server, which is in the red box here, and it decides which platform or load balancer each train should go to. The platforms are designed to handle both regular trains, and which is HTTP, and the high-speed bullet trains that require special tracks, which is the HTTPS, which are more secure. The train can't park at the platform on its first try. You have a system which is in the retry function, which gives it another go without causing any delays. Meanwhile, our information board is in the RDS database in purple over here, and that keeps a record of all the trains which are coming and going. Next to it, we have the station supervisor, CloudWatch, watching the board and making notes to ensure everything runs on time. This way, the station keeps track of all its trains in real time and ensures the passengers or users have a smooth and secure journey. Here you can see all of it overall. As for teamwork, we found it really useful to split into groups to save time and multitask. There were a few tasks where we decided we would try different ways at attempting the same thing, so that we would prepare for one of them to fail, so it would have a backup to help it work. We use Trello to keep on top of everything and help with communication, and it's good for keeping track of what's left to do and how much time you think should be designated for it. And there was a bit of difficulty in estimating tasks because it can be quite challenging to accurately guess the time and effort needed to do the task. But we all supported each other. We had mini retros, check in with each other, and it was all really supportive. And I think now I'm going to pass on to Sean.
Yeah, so just some of our future goals or what we'd do differently. So we'd push the hosp server team for the code, prepare a GitLab repo earlier just to consolidate some work, replicate the backend to remove the unreliable responses, and add an external login to make accessing or parsing easier. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of a retrospective. So some of the things that I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed the use of creating diagrams. It's something that I've done at previous jobs, but after moving to different jobs and different roles, it was something that I just sort of stopped doing. So it was nice to get back into it and introduce it into me sort of routine a little bit more. And then just using AWS, it's something that I've seen sort of advertised in real life. I know it's usually plastered around the circuits in Formula One, so I've always sort of wondered what it was. So it was nice to sort of put a face to a name, so to speak, and then just see how other applications or software such as Terraform and Kubernetes work within it. At this point, I would pass you over to Joe, but unfortunately he's ill. So apart from drinking copious amounts of Yorkshire tea and eating Ferrero Rocher, Joe likes to learn to work within a pair and group effectively, as well as collaborating on GitLab and utilizing the CI/CD pipeline. So I'll pass you over to Troy.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, for me, the best part of this project and overall, really, in the last 8 weeks, is taking a big problem with, like, you know, with the hosp server, for example, and the processes that you can actually do in much smaller chunks to break that problem down. So rather than just one over-airing issue, you've got multiple little parts of it that you can work on to, you know, to really bring the whole problem to an end, essentially. Harry?
So I think, like everyone, I found the last 8 weeks quite difficult, but also very enjoyable. My feelings range from imposter syndrome on one hand to feeling like I could do anything on the other, because it's the best feeling when it works. I learned a lot from my coach, my team, and myself. It's been a real mix of technical mastery, teamwork, and a cycle of always learning. I think anyone can learn anything, but it's embracing the discomfort of learning is a huge part of immersive learning. And the act of learning, I find, is often more difficult than the knowledge of the tasks that you gain along the way. I'm going to pass on to George now.
Thank you, Harry. So for me, the main thing, like Sean, has been the use of diagrams. I was not a big fan of diagramming before I came here, but I've fully appreciate how important the use of diagrams are, because if you can diagram something well and explain it well in a diagram, that shows to yourself that you understand if you can explain it to somebody else and can actually answer their questions. That to me seems like the best way of learning. And that's what I found over these past 8 weeks, and well, over the past 16 weeks personally. So I fully recommend diagramming and notes. If you don't do it, do it. It will help you in the long run. So thank you all very much. And I believe if we go to the next slide, you can see our final results. And thank God it's Friday. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Excellent stuff. And those are some pretty impressive stats. I think we can all agree on that. Would anybody wait before I open the floor? Team Blue, are you happy to field questions?
Yeah, we can take questions.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Team Blue? Nope.
I think, Sean, you stole my question because I was going to ask what you do differently. So it's really nice that in a place of work, you always have a retro, especially in the roles that you're going to be looking into initially. And so it's good that you've already got that in your mind. And I like the tenacity just to keep on going, because sometimes it doesn't work out and you try once, you don't give up, you just keep on going. And then when you do succeed, what next? To keep that sort of continual improvement alive, and that's what gets you the promotions, that's what gets you the success and the satisfaction and the enjoyment in the role. So again, well done. You can tell you put a lot of effort into the slides, and in terms of the visuals, it looked really good. So thank you, well done.
Cheers. Thank you.
Well deserved praise. Any more for any more? No. Okay, great. Well, in a shake-up from the previously agreed running order, Team Yellow are having some technical difficulties and asked to go last. So Team Yellow, have you surmounted your technical difficulties? Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm good to go now.
Excellent.
Bear with me. Is that sharing okay, everyone?
Looks good, Neil.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for being here on our presentation. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to the coaches at Makers, specifically Claire and Roy, the amount of hard work you put into us all and helping us with our development. I'd also like to extend my congratulations to each member of the cohort. Just looking through these presentations from like the software engineering phase, you've come on leaps and bounds. So yeah, a big well done. So who are we then? We're Team Yellow, a group of junior developers that come from a various different backgrounds, but are all part of the same journey. I'm Neil. I spent 15 years in the parachute regiment before being medically discharged. I decided that I no longer wanted to work in security and opted for a career change, where I was lucky enough to get an apprenticeship with Makers through DWP. I'd now like to introduce another developer, Tej Sweeney.
Hello everyone, myself Tejaswini. So I come from finance background, as I always been interested in IT since the beginning of my career, and I began learning about the cloud computing to explore the new opportunities. And then fortunately I secured this apprenticeship, and this serves as a stepping stone for me to pursue my passion for technology. And during this boot camp I have gained valuable skills, and I'm eager to apply them in my job role. Thank you.
Bro, thank you, Tej. Next, I'd like to introduce our next developer, Robert.
Hello, my name is Robert. I came from working as a nurse for quite a lot of years in London. Have always been a little bit of a nerd and have done lots of self-learning, made a couple of apps on the side, and have been very lucky to get a apprenticeship with On, which when I tell people, no one really knows who they are or what they do, but I have been absolutely geeking out about it. So very lucky to have this opportunity and can't wait to get stuck in next week in the office.
Bro, thank you, Robert. Next, I'd like to introduce Louis.
Hi, I'm Louis. I've just came out of secondary school before getting an apprenticeship with DWP, and I chose a career in tech because I excelled in computer science at school, and I enjoyed it. So I thought it'd be a good place to start my career.
Bro, thank you, Louis. And finally, Josh.
Hi, I'm Josh. I've worked at the DWP for the last couple of years as an AO. I've previously worked as an electronics engineer. I've always been interested in a tech role within the DWP, so I thought the DevOps apprenticeship would be the perfect fit for me.
Bro, thank you, Josh. So why did we all choose a career in tech? Throughout this journey, we've learnt various different technologies and tools such as Docker, which is a containerization tool, Kubernetes, a container orchestration tool, and Terraform, which is infrastructure as a code tool. Alongside that, we've learnt about pipelines and also various AWS resources. We've also been exposed to a variety of program languages such as Python, JavaScript, and JSON. The field of technology is at the forefront of innovation, which is constantly evolving and shaping the future. Working in tech allows individuals to contribute to groundbreaking advancements that have the potential to positively impact the society of a global scale. Whether it's developing on new software, creating cutting-edge hardware, or pioneering breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, technology offers opportunities to be at the forefront of change and make a tangible difference in the world.
Okay, so I would like to walk through you our journey, how we work together as a team. So there are a few pointers. So first one is the communication, which is very important. So it plays very important role within the team. So like effective communication has been at the core of our team synergy, and we maintain open and transparent communication channel and ensure that ideas, feedbacks, and information flow freely among the team members. And we had a dedicated Slack channel for the project related discussions where team members could ask questions and then can share updates and provide a feedback in real time. And this communication channel ensured that everyone was on the same page and could address any issues. And the next part here is the collaboration. So this has been an instrumental in our team's success. So we embrace the power of working together and leveraging each other's diverse skills, knowledge, and perspective to achieve common goals. So to enhance our workflow efficiency, we implemented a collaborative task management tool, especially Trello, so which enables us to track progress and then delegate tasks and communicate effectively in real time. Last but not least, so it's a mutual support, so that plays an important role within this 2 week journey. So this is also a core of our team culture. So we created an environment where each and every team member feels valued and empowered, and also like offering assistance to each other, encouraging and a constructive feedback whenever needed. So this mutual support has strengthened our bond and fueled our collective progress throughout our journey together. So when like any of the team member was feeling overwhelmed with their workload, and the other volunteered to help and lighten the load by taking any additional guidance and assistance.
Brill. Thank you, Tej. Next, I'd like to hand over to Robert to talk about some challenges we faced.
Yep, so me and Louis are both going to cover a couple of challenges each. So as you may have guessed, we're trying to focus less on what the module wanted of us and the technical side of things, which we didn't want to just rehash after the other two presentations. So the first thing I would kind of like to talk about in terms of challenges we faced as a team is the potential lack of leadership or the lack of a project manager. So we did have a very collaborative focus. But we thought maybe having one person take the role of a project manager could have helped us progress more in certain areas. So having one person who had a complete overview of the project and could maybe delegate more to people could mean that we progressed further, we got some of our stretch goals achieved, maybe things that we didn't quite manage to implement within the 2 weeks. But to take a positive spin on it, it meant that everyone had to be quite proactive in keeping up to date with what everyone else was doing. We were constantly checking the Trello board, making sure we didn't overlap on features and we weren't duplicating code. So it kind of worked out in the end. And a second point for me as well is maybe better testing of our infrastructure. So to just rehash a little bit about the setup. So we obviously inherited a setup where clients would make a request to the HOSP backend server. So they might request a list of all the notes for a particular patient, and the HOSP backend would gather those notes together and send a response with all those notes. So one of the first things we did was just to slide a proxy server in, which would just intercept those notes so that we could do some magic and try and improve response times, improve reliability, improve security. One thing that we found in doing this is that we would make changes, test it locally. So we would send a couple of requests to this test server locally, and it would work fine. We'd push it into production, and then when it was suddenly getting 1,000 requests, it didn't work. So something to bear in mind in future would maybe be using that load balancer, where you can redirect traffic in very small increments, so that we could send a little bit to a second test server, make sure it's working properly, instead of just pushing some code to production and having clients potentially complain that suddenly everything was broken and having to reverse changes. So yeah, we've got lots of learning opportunities, and I'll hand over to Louis for a couple more points.
So another obstacle we faced is not having access to any of the backend code. So we didn't fully understand how the backend worked and how we could make it more reliable. And we overcame it by looking and reading all the documentation, and we communicated to build an understanding of the situation. And then the next obstacle is not knowing where to start, as we didn't have access to the code and it was completely new. We overcame it by researching about how we can make the load balancer more reliable and put all of our ideas into a Trello board and then take them off throughout the project.
Bro, thank you, Louis. And finally, I'd like to hand over to Josh.
So I'm going to talk about the team successes. So what was successful with our team? So we conducted our initial research, gaining what we needed from the HOSP documentation. Did that quite well. Then we got to grips with Athena. So Athena is a tool used to monitor the logs of a database. You can use query commands to analyze specific pieces of information on this. We used Nginx as a reverse proxy. We used this to retry an error message up to 5 times, 500 message if you're interested. We got 100% success rate by the end of the first week. We enabled HTTPS on the load balancer to encrypt traffic. We added a AWS Global Accelerator to the load balancer. This moves user traffic onto the AWS's global network infrastructure, thus increasing performance. And finally, we created a place where we could make notes of any of the changes made to the load balancer and observations that we had made.
Bro, thank you, Josh. That concludes our presentation. Would now like to invite you to ask any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Fantastic work, folks. Lovely stuff. Anybody got any questions or comments for the group? Nope. Okay, great. Well, if there's nothing else, I would just like to take the opportunity to say thank you to the cohort. You've been an absolute delight to work with. I've said it to you all before, but you have done a stunning job this time around. When I think about like other, other responses I've seen to the same challenges, you've all really risen to the occasion. You've been a delight to work with. You've been super professional, communicative, and it's been really nice to have a cohort that's embraced, even though we're working remotely, you always have your cameras on, you're always engaging in group sessions, and it really feels like we've all been working together on this, and I really appreciate that for sure. And it's been a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to see what you do in the next portion of your career, so please do stay in touch. Okay, let's have a virtual set of applause for the three teams, teams red, blue and yellow. And I think we're coming in just under the advertised time, so nice work there as well.
Thank you, Roy. Making a mockery of all my really careful time tracking, just being on time, which is amazing. Thanks very much. Last but certainly not least, I'm here to present to you the results of the quality engineering cohort. This group started back in October. They started on the same foundations course as everybody else who's been on this call today. And then at the start of January, they pivoted to move on to quality engineering, with many of them working towards the software tester apprenticeship. They've learned a lot of things during the last 8 weeks, not least, why is software testing different to quality engineering? They've learned a lot of practical skills, be it related to test automation, to how to perform exploratory testing, to lots of things around planning and strategy, to some of the more soft skills, like how to report bugs in a way that you don't scare all of your developers away. We've been involved in some specialist tooling, so we've seen lots of using tools for API testing, for accessibility testing, performance testing, security testing, loads of different things all in one big quality engineering bucket, all mixed up until the last 2 weeks when my favorite part of the course came along, which is, as you'll have seen if you've been along since the start of the call, we parachuted them into some real teams who are working on real projects. Now, you will have seen these projects already, but this is a different spin on those. They may be the same projects, but these are the views of the testers in those teams and their experiences. So different things to come from them. We're going to start with Kate and Sean. You may remember seeing Bakers versus Ducks earlier. If you ever wanted to play Plants versus Zombies, but you wanted to have more croissants in it, then this is the team for you. I always say to teams when they opt to say they want to test games that it's sometimes a bit of a poison chalice. Like, the idea of testing a game is amazing, but as soon as you get into it, like the randomness, like there's so many variables in there that are so difficult to track. So like it's a bit of a poison chalice sometimes. But Kate and Sean, do you want to share your experiences of testing Bakers versus Ducks?
Sounds good. Right, let's see if I can get this to work this time. Hoping it will. Share this and then bang this. Bosh, got it working. Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, as Neil kindly already introduced us, we've been working on the Bakers versus Ducks game as we've been going. Neither of us had tested a game before. The developers had never made a game before, so it was very interesting. And here are some of the things we came across along the way. If you were here earlier, you've probably seen this video. I've just sort of nicked it from Piers, one of our developers, but he talks you through the game in such a wonderful way that I just cannot recreate. So I'll let him talk through it, and then we'll carry on.
Hello.
Ooh.
Hello. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to be showing you around our game Bakers versus Ducks. When we launched the game, this is what we're presented with. This is the home screen. Initially, I'll show you the how to play. This just gives us a brief synopsis of the game itself. It has a little explanation on the defenders we have available to us, as well as the types of enemies we're going to be encountering. When we actually launched the game, we're presented with this screen. As you can see on the left, we have the bakery, and on the right, we have the pond. At the bottom of the screen, we have our controls bar, where we can actually select each of the individual bakers. The bakers themselves have their own set of attributes: cost, hit points, range, and damage. In the top right, we have a pause and a quit button. The pause will just stop gameplay if you need to stop it for whatever reason, and then if you click it again, it will resume gameplay. Next to that, we have a quit button, which will just bring you back to the home screen. In the top left, we have the score, the amount of breadcrumbs, and what level you are. Breadcrumbs is the currency for the game. As you can see at the bottom with the cost, that refers to the amount of breadcrumbs. The ducks themselves, as I mentioned, they'll spawn from the pond and then walk towards the bakery.
I don't know whether that stopped working. Is it still working for anyone? Nope. Wonderful. Okay, so basically they go towards the bakery, they get the bread, and that is game over, and it will present you with a score of how well you've done. And then from there you can quit and go back to the home page and start the game again. It's simplistic, but I think that's part of its beauty. It runs really well, and I'm genuinely really proud of what the developers have made. I'll pass you on to Sean now, who will go over what we tested, how and why.
Hello everyone. So what we tested, how and why. So for day one, we focused on planning. We spent the whole day planning. We participated in the planning of the game. While in this meeting, we started to think about how we would go about testing the types of games suggested. So a couple of games we sort of suggested were like side scrollers, tower defense games, logic games, and we ended up deciding on something like Plants vs Zombies or one of the other tower defense games you see advertised every time you open another iPhone game or whatever. The team decided on a game that didn't use a backend, which narrowed our testing approach, so we couldn't focus on any security, well, not really any security testing, because there's no usernames or passwords, nothing like that. So it's purely just game functionality testing. Once enough details were decided on the game, we met up to write a vague test plan on what we expected the game to feature, how this might work, and what tests we might run based on this. So we decided to use multiple browsers, Safari and Chrome, to see if they would give any different results. We planned what we could potentially automate, discussing using it for testing the menu. However, as the game developed, we decided that automation wouldn't suit the project. It was ever changing and it would take unnecessary time in such a short development window. However, we did consider that for future sprints, we might implement automation, just because it's for some of the smaller parts of the game, like the how to play page, it would be really useful to have
some automation there just so we don't have to consistently check it, but not worth our time in the early stages. In the early stages of the game, there wasn't anything physical for us to test, so we joined the pairs of developers and made sure we knew what they were working on and how it was meant to work. While in these rooms, we helped the developers to ensure quality throughout by asking questions and trying to avoid defects. Once there was a first version of the game available, we worked together to test it. One of us would navigate the application while the other one made notes, suggestions, and took screenshots of any defects we came across. And due to the way the program worked, we prioritized exploratory testing as we felt this would be the best way to test in the time we had, and we consistently used exploratory testing to make sure we caught any new defects that came in, any new pull requests. And I'll hand back to Kate for bugs. Oh, never mind. There's a new part that I was not aware of. We also implemented some accessibility testing. We found we could navigate the main menu and how to play with the voiceover function. However, the main game would need more tweaking further in another sprint. And now I'll hand over.
Sorry, Sean.
That's all right.
Yeah, so the developers were great for testing as they went along, and they found bugs as they were going and fixed them as they were going themselves. But we found different bugs because we were looking for sort of more edge cases and different situations. So we used the structure to make our bug reports readable and use screenshots to show clearly the defects that we found. We included how to reproduce the bug and the priority and severity. As Sean already said, if it was a high priority, we would normally just go straight to the developer anyway and see if we could get them to fix it as soon as possible. We use both GitHub and Trello to communicate these bugs, and if the bug was particularly high priority, as I just said, go and let them know straight away. The team worked together really well. However, this was our first time working on a project where we didn't know the code language, which made it a bit trickier to understand and to help solve the issues. It made it more of like a black box test than a white box test, despite having access to the code. So that would normally make it a white box test. It just proved a little bit trickier. But early on, we suggested to the devs that that they put comments in the code so that us and anyone else who picked up the code in the team would understand what it was doing and why. They all did this, which was brilliant, and they also created a really detailed README on how to run the game too, which they did a great job. We encouraged the team to test along the way, and we noted that they all did this, which was really great. So they either tested the code that they just added, or they passed it to us to test the whole thing and see how it did. How it worked. We also did regression testing along the way. Anytime they would add something new and push it, we would check the whole thing. So we were largely doing exploratory testing. But as there was only 2 pages in a pop-up to text to test, we just tested the whole thing just to make sure that nothing had been broken with any of the new updates along the way, basically. This is an example of one of our bug reports. So on this bug, I don't know if you can see, but down by between the 2 bakers on the road, there is our cursor, and where the highlighted part is where you would be able to push a baker. So we found that if you change the size of the window, your cursor completely lost place of where it was on the screen. This then caused like a lot of knock-on effects, meaning that it would make it a much less usable experience for the user. This was one of our sort of higher priority bugs, so we ended up going straight to the developers with this. We logged it as medium purely because the lack of experience for them, they weren't sure if they knew how to fix it. However, they did in the end. And I think that's all.
That's what it says on the screen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kate and Sean. Thanks for telling us the testing story of Bakers versus Ducks, and you made a cameo earlier on in the developer demo as well, which is really awesome to see. And I think it really points to how you work together as a team, and this is really what we mean when we talk about testing versus quality. Like, it's all about building a quality culture, about having the devs being willing and wanting to help you out along the way as well, because you're all to build towards a quality product. It's amazing to see. Does anyone have any questions from the chat, text, or put a hand up, or anything like that? I'll ask a question then that I didn't prep you for, which is like, you had some placeholder graphics in there at one point, and you had Rick Astley in there for a while. I'm just wondering, like, is Rick Astley still in there as a super secret boss? Is there like a 1 in a million chance of a Rick?
He's not. I love that idea though. We were going to put in a goose with a knife as like a extra boss at one point, but we worked more on making the difficulty go, so every 1 minute and 40 seconds the difficulty ranges to a bit higher, and more ducks come, to the point where level 10 was damn near impossible. It was great fun. You can do it. You have to use a good amount of bakers though. Them ducks are wily.
Who holds the high score record?
Josh, he's currently still playing as far as I'm aware. He's past level 100. So
Excellent. Well, thank
Told
you
you as
very
a
much for
tester.
thank you very much for for your presentation. We're going to move over to the second team now, which is Matadi and Bruno from Team Tutor Match. This is the kind of project I love to see at Makers, because there are so many bits that are very testable. The idea of the fact that you've got logins, you've got users of different types, you've got messages that fly around. It's a very testable kind of project, but again, that means there's a challenge on how do you test all those things. So over to you folks if you'd like to share your presentation with us.
Yeah, cool. I'll share my screen. Is that showing fun?
Yeah, that's great.
Cool. So so me and Bruno here were the two quality engineers with the Tutor Match group. And just a quick what is Tutor Match. So it's a charity set up to connect DBS checked volunteer tutors with students who need a little extra help. Our tutoring service provided absolutely free for those who need it most. The core functionality of this website is, as a student, you will be able to book a tutor for an hour slot in your subject and grade of choice.
Our role in the project. So as quality engineers, we take on the responsibility of ensure the quality of our MVP, to keep that as a high standard. This ensures that the user experience on our website is as smooth as possible and is accessible to everyone.
So in the early stages, after coming up with our idea, we started to look at the user interactions and came up with the MVP we thought we could achieve within the 2 weeks we had. We built a wireframe to give us a visual idea of what we wanted in each page, and just helped us visualize our goal better as well.
So building with quality in mind. So during the planning of our project, us as QEs had to think about whether or not these ideas are actually possible and how well they can be tested to ensure bugs don't occur, or at least minimize those. So small things such as including IDs and all the tags in the HTML files was something that we thought about at the beginning to help later on when we start using Selenium for front-end testing.
So for communications, for the communication aspect, we had three stand-ups each day, and the final one of each day being a retro. We had a Slack channel for any questions that one of us has, and then any pull requests that needed to be reviewed. We also had a Trello board to track all of our progress and to see what each person was doing, which led to more productivity. And bug reports were also done through Trello, but more serious ones were done in a more formal style, done in GitHub issues. And you can see some of the screenshots of the bug reports that we did.
Testing. So we tested mainly the main core of the core functionality of the app using Selenium and backend test with CI for automation. This saves time to run all these tests manually, giving us more time to move on with the development. When we had a product we felt had the minimum functionality, we did an exploratory test covering the entire web application to see all the user interactions and spot any possible bugs. As you can see in the image, we create this plan and structure it, and we follow it. So that's an example.
So in our project, we also implemented CI. We did this through the GitHub Actions page, so that each time code changes occurred, they were automatically tested. Us QEs set this up using a YAML file, installing all our dependencies and creating secrets for files that shouldn't be pushed to GitHub, and then running tests in the backend.
Automation. We use automation to simulate the behavior of real users. This saves a lot of time for us manually to check for bugs and errors each time the changes are made. We use Selenium with Java, and we were able to automate many different actions like in the real world.
Accessibility. So to see how accessible our page is, we used Lighthouse, which was in DevTools, and Wave, which is a Chrome extension. Good accessibility practices tend to result in clearer text, better adherence to web standards, and a more consistent user experience within the website.
Some of the obstacles we encountered during this project. So at the beginning of the development stage, we felt it was a challenge to feel involved as a tester, as we were unable to test much. However, we were able to give input into how we can maintain quality during the development. Then at the middle of the project, some sensitive information was accidentally pushed to the GitHub. This was solved by removing the file from the repository and then also scrubbing it out of the commit history. And finally, implementing CI for the first time was a challenge for us, as there are multiple factors we didn't account for. However, with some support, we were able to figure out how to implement files that can be pushed as a secret and got the workflow run correctly.
So now we have a little demo. Make sure the speed is up there. So this is our landing page, and we've got a little about us section showing everyone in the group. Now we go to create a free account, and this is our sign up page. So we're going to be signing up as a tutor. We've got radio buttons to show if you want to sign up as a tutor or as a student. In the past, it also shows messages at the bottom, say to give like a check on if you've got all the valid arguments for it. So we've also got messages in place to show that if you've already got this email, try logging in instead. So after signing up, you can see there's not much in this page, and that's because we also have an admin account which approves the tutors. So the only things you can do in this page while it's unapproved is to change your profile picture and edit your bio.
This has a level of security, so not everyone can be a tutor. Like in the real world, you should pass a check to be able to be a tutor.
So now here we're going to be logging in as as an admin. And this is to just approve of the accounts that the tutors that we already added. So here we've got 3. And I'm going to approve all of them. So now logging on back as a tutor we made earlier. We now see that there's a lot more on the landing page after you've signed in. So we've got request bookings, my tutoring sessions, updating your availability and updating the subjects that you teach. So here we're just setting some availability. And this is mainly for showing when you can book this tutor. So here we've got a message saying availability was added. And then this is updating the subjects that we had. And we get a message that has been successful. And it also shows up in your tutor details. Now we're going to, I think, log in as a student here. Just extra validation checks. And then once you sign in as a student, you can see that you're taken straight to the search page, and we see this tutor here. So you have a reviews part where students are allowed to leave reviews for tutors, with a star review and also adding comments. Then we've also got a request session, where you can request an hour booking, and you can see that it's been requested. So I think we're going to log back into the tutor page that we just made a request for. And now you can see that there's a requested bookings and the tutor has chosen to accept it. And now the status is accepted, and that will be taken off from the calendar. And that's it. So thank you for listening. And if there's any questions, you guys feel free to ask.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, both of you. That was fantastic and a really good demonstration of what we mean when we say that you're building an MVP. You know, you have something there that is doing a lot of stuff, given you've only had 2 weeks. And you mentioned like day one, you didn't even know what you were building. So to get from not really knowing what's being built to having that and delivering it, and delivering it to a high quality as well, is fantastic. A lot of the time, including in the real world, when testers join a team, there is a worry that that's going to slow things down. But it's very clear that you've been able to keep problems out of the way of developers, put them in front of their eyes when they need to know about them. Really good stuff. Is there any questions coming from the room? A hand from George. Is that a
Hi,
question?
yes, it is a question. Thank you. It was more so because obviously you stated to make your life easier, you asked for like IDs to be implemented to make it easier for testing. Were there any things that you suggested that the team weren't so receptive to like implementing, and like how did you go about working around it, kind of things? Just if it occurred.
So there weren't many things that we like butted heads on. So once we've asked for some, because they respected us like as testers, like we know like there's certain things that need to be changed so it's easier for tests, like easier for testing, so like bugs don't occur. So they, as soon as we brought something up, they would probably instantly change it after we've asked them to. So they'll probably put in the next pull request. Like they were really immediate to any bugs that we saw, and they just answered it quickly and just solved the problem.
Yep, that's grand. I just wanted to see how the interactions were.
Yeah, but overall, like it was a really good like team experience. Like we all worked really well together.
Yeah, I witnessed that for myself. You mentioned the incident where some sensitive information got committed. Even that was, you all owned it as a team problem, because, well, I know that the pair of you were kicking yourself because you'd put the file into GitHub. You'd only managed to get it into GitHub because the team had misspelt something in the git.ignore file, so it shouldn't have been able to get in there. And like you took ownership as a team and resolved it. And it was great to see you coming together and working as one unit, not just a dev team who has some testers to support them, which is fantastic. Any more questions before we wrap up? I know when I say that at the end of a Friday, there's no one wants to say yes because everyone wants to go and have weekends. So I will do a little bit of administration then. Thank you very much to all of our QEs and to all of our previous cohorts, for Roy hosting for cloud engineering and Claire for holding the software development presentations. Most of the people you've heard from today are going to be venturing out into the working world and maybe even starting work on Monday. Hopefully you're going to have a restful weekend ahead of that. Here at Makers, we'll see you back here in another 8 weeks, because we'll go around again. If you can guarantee one thing, it's that we'll be here again in 8 weeks' time. Any questions about anything you've heard today, you can get in touch with us at Makers, any of the coaches you've heard speak today, if you've got any questions about what you've seen. And thank you very much for coming along, everybody. I hope you really do have a lovely weekend ahead of you. And thank you to everyone, not just that I've worked with, but who've been here on the call today. Everyone has demonstrated their passion and their skill and their discipline, that they've been through, a challenging final test and come through it with flying colours. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for your time, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.